The candle smelled like rain on hot pavement. It sat in the trunk next to a second set of white sheets still in plastic, the kind hotels use when they want you to feel forgiven. My wife texted me, "Blue hour ran long, home in 20. On my kitchen table, our son's tablet chimed and pulled fresh RAW files from her cloud. The metadata said she was shooting at 12,007 a.m., 3 hours after she said she kissed our boy goodnight. I'm Evan, 36. I wire old houses and new builds across Portland and try to keep the lights honest. My wife, Mara, photographs architecture. If you've ever scrolled past a glossy photo of a Pearl District loft with concrete floors and a fern placed just so, that might be hers. She chases blue hour, the 15 minutes when the sky turns the color of a bruise and every window glows. It's her magic. It's also where my marriage broke. The week it began to feel wrong. The rain was soft enough to pretend it wasn't there. The city smelled like wet cedar. I pulled into our driveway in Lents with a spool of Romex on my passenger seat and a carton of milk rolling around the floorboard. I popped the trunk to grab my tool bag. That's when I saw the sheets. The package said, long staple cotton, queen size, crisp white hotel grade. Next to them, 2 candles with labels that read, Peat and Rain. Mara loves scents so much she describes them like food. These smelled like campfire at the end of a storm. They weren't our brand, and the sheets weren't our size. We have a king bed because I run hot and steal the covers. I shut the trunk and stood there with my hand on the latch while night slid down our street like a cold animal. A TriMet bus hissed at the corner. A woman in a bright jacket jogging a dog waved without looking. I opened the trunk again and picked up the candles, held them under my nose, and felt the small lie of them. I told myself staging. She works with Theo, the guy who lends furniture to empty spaces so buyers can imagine a life inside. Staging uses sheets. Staging uses candles. Staging uses candles. Staging makes empty places smell like a promise. Inside, the kitchen light was a steady hum. The boy, Oliver, 7, sat at the table with a pencil as short as his patience. He was working on a spelling sheet and writing the word bridge over and over until it turned into a shape. He looked up at me like I'd been somewhere. Mom says her camera needed the blue, he said. He says what she says like a translator. She always needs the blue, I said, and kissed the top of his head. His hair smelled like the school library. I set the candles by the sink and opened the tablet to check the time on his math app. Instead, I watched new thumbnails stack themselves, smooth as cards on a dealer's hand. RAW 3356. RAW 3337. The preview of the first showed a steel staircase and a deep window framing a slice of the Fremont Bridge. The second showed a coffee table with 2 empty glasses and a folded throw pillow at an angle that didn't look like a sales photo. I tapped the info icon because that's the person I am. The timestamps said 12,007 a.m. and 12,012 a.m., shot at ISO 1600 f2.8 shutter 1/130, which was a little blurry for her standards. The location tagged a side street off Northwest Gleason, not far from a bar we used to like before we pretended we were too tired to go out. My brain did that stupid thing where it tried to make the facts kind. Maybe she rendered these later. Maybe her clock was off. Maybe. Maybe is the soft word you use to push back a hard one. The front door opened like a secret. Mara slid in carrying her camera bag by the handle, shoulders up around her ears, hair tucked into a cap. She shook rain off her jacket and smiled tired because that's what you do when you come home late and want the room to like you. How was it? I asked. Wet, she said. Theo's client wanted the townhouses looking lived in. We lit every lamp in 3 units. It was like we were selling warmth. Did Oliver eat? I pointed at the math sheet. He can spell bridge 4 different wrong ways. She reached for the tablet out of habit, then stopped when she saw it in front of me. Something flickered across her face like a plane crossing the sun. I pulled a few files for a look, I said. I kept my voice even. I do that for a living when a breaker trips and someone is mad at the dark. You shot at midnight. The camera clock, she said. Too fast. I forgot to. It also says the address, I said. Not in Selwood near the river trail where you told me. Northwest, near where Theo keeps his warehouse. She put her bag down gently, like it was full of eggs. Evan, it's city work. Time slide. We moved locations when the homeowner wanted to come back. It's flexible. You bought candles, I said, and sheets. Queen. For staging, she said. Theo cheaped out on linens again. Clients notice. Do clients notice Pete and Rain? I asked, and now I heard it, the small edge that cuts. She laughed, too loudly, and rubbed the back of her neck. You're jealous of a candle? I'm jealous of a timeline, I said. I'm jealous of GPS. I'm jealous of lowercase midnight. She turned the faucet on and off like the sound of water would wash the words out of the air. Oliver came in and leaned on her hip, and she kissed the top of his head and met my eyes over his hair. It was a look that said, "Not now." I took Oliver to brush his teeth because some routines are safer than honesty. That night, I lay in bed with the dog at my feet and the house ticking in small winter noises. Mara slid in on her side like a swimmer practicing not to splash. I could smell peat and rain in her hair. I kept my face toward the window. Out there, somewhere west, were the lofts she loves, sunken living rooms, exposed beams, rooms staged for dreams you can buy. In the morning, I found a plastic card in her camera bag while I looked for a memory card for Oliver's class picture day. It was blue with a tiny metal insert like a SIM chip and the word Supra on the front. It wasn't hers. The back had a label with another agent's name typed in block letters, Kara Nishimura. Supra is what real estate agents use to open lockboxes when a place is for sale, but nobody's home. I knew that because I'd wired half a dozen modern condos with outlets behind where the staging teams like to plug in lamps. I knew that because Portland sells itself through doors that open with apps. I put the Supra card back and sat very still while the coffee machine gurgled. Oliver shuffled in with one shoe on and one sock inside out. Mara breezed through on her phone, kissed the air near my cheek, and said she'd be home before dinner. "Blue hour?" I asked. "Always," she said, and smiled in that way that used to make me feel like she wanted me to follow her through the city. Then she grabbed her bag and was gone. At work, I rewired an ugly old panel in a rental-off division that scared me to look at. The landlord hovered and told me about airflow like he was auditioning to be my boss. I kept thinking about the name on that card. I kept thinking about those empty glasses in her photo. At lunch, I sat in my van with the seat heater on and typed Kara Nishimura into the internet. Kara had a bright headshot and sold houses with tall windows and art on the walls. Her bio said she loved community and coffee. She did not mention lending lockboxes to photographers. I had a thought I didn't like and pushed it back with a sandwich. At 4, a charge hit our bank account from Theo's company, Salt and Cedar Staging, 158. A second charge from a liquor store near the Pearl came through too. I didn't say anything about that to myself because sometimes the truth is a small animal and you let it sit under the porch until it decides to come out. I finished the job, swept up plaster dust, and drove toward Northwest because my body had decided to find the building my brain pretended not to know. The loft was where the map said it would be. The bricks had been scrubbed clean of their age. A faded painted sign on the side said, "Furniture," in ghost letters a developer kept for charm. The door had a keypad and a black puck where you hold the Supra and it wakes a box like a robot mouth giving you keys. Through the glass, I could see the kind of lobby that makes you look at your shoes. A woman got off the elevator with a dog that looked like a throw pillow. She looked at me and then away like I was a maintenance man with a problem, which is what I was. A young guy with a skateboard under his arm stood under a streetlight and watched. "You going to the closed viewing?" he asked in a voice that said he already knew I wasn't invited. "What's a closed viewing?" I asked. He shrugged, and that way skinny kids make look like wind moving their clothes. "Theo runs them sometimes," he said. "Private tours for investors," my roommate went once. He said it was a bunch of people pretending the city belongs to them and drinking wine on somebody else's couch. "And candles," I said. The kid grinned. "Yeah, like a church, but for money." The lobby door opened and Theo himself came out on a wave of cologne and practiced casual. He's one of those men whose beard always looks like he trimmed it in a mirror that likes him. He saw me and gave me the smile you give someone when you want him to move his truck so yours can park. "Can I help you?" he asked, vowels stretched by charm. "Mara here?" I asked. She said she was shooting. His eyes flickered like a light when the dimmer is dirty. "She's around," he said. "I think she ran to grab batteries." "I can wait," I said. Another flicker, then a shrug. "Suit yourself," he said and went back inside. The skateboard kid laughed into his sleeve. I waited long enough to feel like an idiot and then left because stubborn is not the same as brave. On the way home, the sky did its trick, turned that bruised blue she loves. For a second, I remembered sitting with her on the bluff at Cathedral Park the first year we moved here, watching the St. John's Bridge glow like a cathedral and thinking we'd cracked the city's secrets. Then I drove south, under the wet, past the small tent city under the overpass, and home to a spelling worksheet and a frozen pizza. Mara came in at 9 with her hair wet and the smell of a candle following her. I set a plate on the counter and said, "Theo runs clubs in empty lofts?" She blinked wide and put a hand on the counter like the wood might tell her what to say. "They're just previews," she said. "Investors like to see a place at the right time." "With wine?" I said. "With candles, with sheets." "Evan," she said, and the way she said my name told me she needed me to be the easy version of myself. "This is work. I'm tired, please." "If it's work," I said, "then you won't mind showing me your super logs." She froze, then laughed without mirth. "What are you, an auditor now?" "I wire the city," I said. "I know what wakes doors. I found the card." She stared at me for a long beat, then said the thing people say when the story is too fragile to share. "You're making a problem." "I'm naming one," I said. Oliver's bedroom light made a soft rectangle on the hall. I stopped. She stopped. We both stood inside the kind of quiet that makes you see yourself. I walked away first because sometimes that is the only noble move left. 2 nights later, the problem named itself. It wasn't even me who dragged it into the light. A renter came home early to his unit on 5 and saw candlelight through his peephole. He heard voices inside his living room and the thin sound of a cork popping. He put his key in the lock and it wouldn't turn because the bolt was thrown. He did not like that. He called the manager and then the police in a voice that gets you a quick response. By the time I got there, because Theo texted Mara and Mara called me and said, "Can you come? It's weird." The hall was full of people who live by elevators that smell like grapefruit. The door to 503 stood open. Inside, the room looked like a magazine that ate another magazine. A tray held 2 glasses with lipstick ghosts on the rim. The peat and rain candles burned low. Mara stood by the window with her camera hanging like a weight. Theo talked fast at a man in a blazer holding a clipboard with the building's logo. The renter, a short guy with a suitcase and a shirt that needed sleep, pointed in short jabs like he could poke the evening in the eye. A uniformed cop scribbled on a pad and clearly wished to be anywhere else. "Sir," the manager said, glad to have a new character to talk to, "you can't hold these events, and you certainly can't." He stopped, gestured at the tray. "This is not a venue." Theo smiled in that tired way that's supposed to gather everyone under his wings. "We are staging a lifestyle," he said. "It's in the proposal. Investors." "It's not in the lease," the renter said. "You lit candles in my home." "They're unscented," Theo said, "bright and stupid." "They smell like a wet fireplace," the renter said. "My girlfriend is allergic to mood." Mara looked at me. I couldn't read the look. She looked small and far away, like I was seeing her through a long lens. I stepped closer, kept my hands at my sides. "Tell the truth," I said to her, soft so it wouldn't bounce. "Tell it once." She swallowed. She glanced at Theo. He gave her a little head shake, quick, the kind that says, "We'll handle this later." She flinched like a hand. "Officer," the manager said, flipping his clipboard like a warning flag, "I need a record that they were here after hours. The super log will tell you the time and code of the person who opened the lockbox." The officer raised his eyebrows. "Supra?" "Lockbox access," the manager said. "It logs the agent's ID and time. If your agent friend used someone else's card, we'll know." Mara exhaled like a balloon dying in a slow, sad way. Theo put a hand on her arm and she pulled it away like it burned. I said, "Kara's name is on your card." The officer looked up. "Whose card?" "No one's," Mara said. "It's just a loaner." The renter snorted and called someone on his phone and immediately began repeating himself for the story he would tell at every party for the next 2 years. The building manager did what building managers do. He made calls. He clicked through screens that looked like they were built in 2003. He pulled up a log and pointed. There it was, 0041 entry by TN, 0043 entry by MC. It was time-stamped midnight 2 nights ago. I stared until the letters moved. DN was Theo's initials. MC was Mara's maiden name from her old business license. They were both here, at midnight, in a place that wasn't theirs. The officer wrote in his pad like it hurt his hand. "This is a civil issue unless something's missing or damaged," he said, but his voice had the weight of a man who knew this was a mess without a charge code. The manager took pictures of the tray and the candles. The renter counted glasses like a tiny accountant of harm. Theo tried to smile it back into something reasonable. "We can comp the cleaning," he said. "We can." "Get out," the renter said, and his whole body agreed. We filed into the hall because the law likes order. Theo blocked the door to the elevator and tried to get Mara to meet his eyes. She stared at the carpet pattern like it held an answer if she looked hard enough. I said her name. She looked at me instead. Good. I held her gaze. "Is it him?" I asked. The question was a knife I wanted to put down but couldn't. Yes, she said. It fell out of her like something heavy finally allowed to drop. Theo made a small huff, half annoyance, half oh well. This is not the time, he said. It's exactly the time, I said. The door is open and the light is on. The manager closed the unit with a click that sounded like a thin kind of justice. The cop left with an apology to no one. The renter took his suitcase inside and shut the door gently because that's the only part of the night he could control. Mara and I stood where the hallway turned toward the stairs, a puddle of people in our way, and the city on the other side of the window pretending it was fine. Evan, she said, my name was a plea and a white flag. I didn't plan. I know, I said. You walked there without looking up. What do you want me to say? She asked. The thing that matters, I said. You crossed the line. She nodded. I did. That was the only sentence that helped. I didn't punch Theo, though part of me wanted to feel my fist on something that deserved consequence. I didn't shout. I did something smaller and harder. I took a photo of the log on the manager's screen and put my phone in my pocket. I took a picture of the candles and the tray and the peephole door. I asked the manager for his email and sent him a thank you so he'd reply and tie his address to mine. Then I left. The next days moved like wet wood, heavy, slow to catch fire and too willing to smolder. Mara slept on the couch one night and at her sister's in Selwood the next. Oliver asked me if Blue Hour got longer in winter, and I said it felt like it. I went to work and pulled wire and let my hands be smarter than my head. I learned the new shape of my voice when I said words like separation to a lawyer in a calm office that smelled like the inside of a dryer. Theo, it turns out, was married to his business, and also married to a person with a last name that moved money around. Her name was Doris, and she looked like the kind of woman who could rearrange a room with her jaw. I met her on a Saturday because that's the day everything decided to end in public. Salt and Cedar threw an open house in a townhome off Mississippi with a kitchen island designed to sell people on the idea of knives they would never use. Investors and couples and dogs came through in a tide of want. I stood near a corner plant and felt like a man who'd walked into the wrong party on purpose. Doris arrived with two other women who wore espresso-like armor. She found Theo holding court by a dining table set with matte plates and cloth napkins tied with twine, so you knew the house came with virtue. She listened to his voice rise and fall like a soothing bedtime story. She waited for him to look up and see her. He did, and that was the moment a small, real thing died in his face. "Darling," he said, but the word fell apart as he spoke it. Doris lifted a hand. "Small, surgical." "We are not doing darling," she said. "We are doing documents." The room went quiet in that way. Groups do when they sense entertainment sharp as glass. Theo laughed the way a man laughs when he wants to put the room back in his pocket. "Let's step outside," he said to Doris, already angling toward the patio. "We will do it here," she said, "where your life has lived lately." She looked at me then like she'd known to look, and I saw her zero in the way a person tracks a sound in the dark. "You're Evan," she said. "Yes," I said. "You have something for me. You have something for me." "I do," I said. I pulled a paper envelope from my jacket. I had loaded it the night before like I was packing for a small war. It held a printout of Mara's raw metadata, the supralog photo, 2 screenshots of texts where Theo told someone leave the lights on and bring the key, and 1 clipped credit card statement that showed candles and sheets bought on a night he told Doris he had a dinner meeting. I didn't hand her everything I had. I handed her enough. The rest I kept for a different conversation at a different table. She thumbed through without drama, each page a step down a staircase. The room's oxygen tilted. Theo said words like misunderstanding and de-escalate. Someone near the kitchen said, "Oh my God," into a cup. Doris looked up and the person wearing her face changed. She looked sad and furious and calm. "You used work to hide a hobby," she said to him, "and you used my money to light the room." "Mara is," he began, and then stopped because he finally saw me as part of the sentence and made a call he should have made weeks ago. "It doesn't matter." "It matters," Doris said. "It always matters." Mara walked in then because a cruel God likes timing. She stopped at the edge of the dining area and took in the shape of the air. Her eyes slid from Theo to Doris to me. She looked at the envelope in Doris's hand, and I watched something in her shoulders fall and then set. "Is this a show?" a man near the island asked, like he could buy misery by the square foot. "No," I said. "This is a set being struck." Doris closed the envelope and handed it back to me. "Thank you," she said, and her voice was not thanking me for ruining her Saturday. It was thanking me for treating truth like a tool, sharp, used only where it must be. "I'll take it from here." She turned to Theo. "You and I are going to sit with a banker, and then a lawyer, and then, if we have time, a therapist who hates you." Theo's mouth opened and closed like a small fish. He reached for her arm and she stepped back with the grace of a dancer leaving a stage. She nodded at me as she left, not triumphant, not calling the crowd to witness, just finished. The room exhaled and tried to mean nothing by it. Mara started toward me. She stopped in front of the table and set her camera down carefully like it was the one thing she could still control. "Evan," she said. "She always says my name like it might do a trick if she gets the tone right. I need to talk to you, not here." "We will," I said, "but not about theories." "What then?" "Oliver," I said. "The house, custody, where the dog sleeps, schedules, things that keep a boy from feeling like furniture." She winced. "You hate me," she said, like she was checking off a box. "I'm tired of you," I said. "There's a difference." We stood facing each other like a long hallway. She waited for me to give her something kinder. I had kindness. It just wasn't for her anymore. I kept it for the kid who writes bridge like a river. That night I moved Oliver's room around. I took the desk out of the corner where the sun never visits and slid it under the window so he could see the cedar tree that always shakes when the crows argue. I put the nightlight with the tiny stars in the outlet by the door. I folded the old sheets into the closet and put the new ones, white, clean, ours, on his bed. He helped. He tucked the corners with small hands and told me that if you fold a blanket right, it doesn't wrinkle your dreams. I said he was probably right. Mara texted once, "I'm at a friend's. She didn't say which friend. I didn't ask." I put my phone face down and let the house be quiet. The dog snored under the table. The fridge clicked and hummed. Somewhere, a train blew a low mourn. The city did its night math. In the weeks that followed, consequences found places to sit. The building where the renter lives started requiring an actual agent to be present for any entry and banned staging parties without insurance and permits and a spine. Supra sent a notice about account sharing. Kara posted a carefully worded apology about process and trust and a reminder that lending your credentials is not just unprofessional, but silly. Theo's Instagram went dark. Salt and Cedar's captions shifted from joyful to, "Sorry, we're closed for inventory." I didn't gloat. It wasn't a football game. It was plumbing leaks you fix so the whole place doesn't rot. At home, we made a calendar. Mara came over at dinner time and we sat at the table and drew a grid of who takes Oliver when and how bedtimes work and who brings cupcakes to the classroom on his birthday. At first, we couldn't even look at each other's hands on the paper. Then, we could. Then, by the third week, we weren't friends, but we were not enemies in front of our son. That felt like a kind of miracle you don't post about. "Do you want me to tell him?" she asked one night, her voice small, like the corner of a room. "No," I said. "You can answer when he asks. But we don't give him a speech like a sermon. We make it a weather report. True, short, no thunder." "I did love you," she said, like I might give her an absolution card. "I know," I said. "I didn't add once. I didn't need to." A month later, after papers had words and signatures, after the open house became folklore and the elevator gossip finished its run, I walked past one of those lofts during blue hour. The sky over the Fremont looked bruised and expensive. Through a window, I saw someone standing over a table arranging a bowl of green apples that had never had a bad day. The light hit the glass and threw my face back at me for a second. Older, thinner, exactly who I am. Oliver asked me on the walk home if the city gets sad when rain lasts too long. I told him, "Rain is how this place talks." He nodded like that made sense. He asked if the candles we bought now could smell like cinnamon instead of storms. I said yes. He said good. Storms make him feel too much. When Mara drops him off, she stands by the door and looks into our living room like a tourist who used to live in a hotel. We talk about the small things, the book he's pretending to read, the tooth that refuses to fall out, the field trip to OMSI that needs $10 cash and a form that's already late. We don't talk about Theo, but I hear things. Everybody does. Doris halved him clean. She kept the investors and the business name and the good couch. He kept the habit of using rooms wrong. That's between him and his mirrors. The day our divorce finalized, I took Oliver to the sandy bank under the Burnside Bridge where people once left wishes written on rocks. He threw a stick into the water and told me it was a rocket. He asked if I was happy. I told him, happy is not a switch, it's a dimmer. He asked where it was set. I told him somewhere I could see. Mara texted me that night and asked if I could send a photo of Oliver smiling. I sent the one with the stick half airborne and his mouth open. She posted it with a caption about small joys and rain and the city holding us all. I didn't like it or comment. I just saved it in a folder labeled Oliver because you save the good thing even if it came from a bad day. I still smell peat sometimes when a storm comes up from the west and the street shines like a film. It makes me feel two things at once, sad for what I thought the candle wanted, proud of the man who turned on the real lights instead. I don't confuse quiet with losing anymore. Quiet is what it sounds like when a house holds. You might say, I should have flicked a table at the open house, or fought Theo in a hallway, or burned the sheets in the street. Maybe that's a story some people want. I want the mornings where Oliver eats cereal without asking if Mom will sleep here tonight. I want the calendar on our fridge to match the faces that walk through our door. I want the blue hour to be a color again and not a trap. The candle in our kitchen now smells like cinnamon. It's cheap, it's warm. When I light it, the room looks like a promise we can keep. I'm not a man who won. I'm a man who stayed steady long enough for rage to turn into a plan. Would you have made the scene in that loft, or walked away and let the logs and timestamps speak for you? And what would you call proof when your heart is certain before the paper is? If this resonated, I'd appreciate a like, a comment with your take, and a subscribe for more stories.